And we're going. I'm sitting in front of my fireplace today with a fire going to kind of help create mood for the stories that we're dealing with this week. The two stories that we're talking about this week, and I'll give you some background. I'm going to give you some background in the video, and then I'm going to delve into some other things in the lesson itself, because the primary thing in the lesson is symbolism, but you need to understand what these stories are and what they're all about to understand the symbolism. Okay, so and I'll go into detail on symbolism in the printed lesson for you. The two stories that we're talking about are two of Nathaniel Hawthorne's stories, and as I said in last week's lesson for you, or in last week's essay, I said that these are probably, undoubtedly, two of my favorite stories of the entire semester. Okay, Young Goodman Brown is the story of a young man, young Goodman Brown, who meets a character in the forest. Okay, now think about the symbolism of meeting in a forest, first of all. Okay, then think about the fact that when he first meets this character, the character tells him that he's late. And he says, "When I passed Old North Church full 15 minutes ago, the clock was already striking 6. Okay, while Salem, the story takes place in Salem, Massachusetts, or just outside of Salem. And you can't get from Boston to Salem today in 15 minutes. The only way it would have been possible 300 years ago was if you were dealing with supernatural beings. Okay, so we know this character that Goodman Brown is meeting in the forest is not a mere mortal. Okay, pick up on that idea quickly. Goodman Brown meets this character in the forest, and the character kind of wants to continue to confuse Goodman Brown all the way through the story. Goodman Brown says that when his father was around, they did such and such, and the devil said, or this evil character, and I just told you he's a devil, said, "I knew your father well," which pretty much blows Goodman Brown's mind. Goodman Brown goes further into the woods and with this character, he keeps saying to himself, "I should turn around and go back," but he doesn't. He keeps going on with him. Okay, and so the pastor from Goodman's Brown Church and the deacon come through, and they are talking about going to some kind of an indoctrination of new people. Okay, and then the woman who taught Goodman Brown his catechism recognizes the devil, calls him by name, calls him Old Scratch. Okay, so it's very obvious that Goodman Brown is meeting with the devil in this story. Okay, and then ultimately Goodman Brown goes to a witch's Sabbath. Now, there's a kicker in this deal too. At the witch's Sabbath, there is everybody from the town. Everybody is there. We see that Goodman Brown sees his mother there, who seems to be saying, "Go away," but he was shocked that the good shrunk not from the wicked. Okay. In the very beginning of the story, when Goodman Brown is about to leave, his wife, Faith, and think about the symbolism in her name. It's not just a name. Hawthorne specifically chose this name, Faith. Okay, Faith says, "This one night above all others, please stay here with me." And Goodman Brown responds to Faith, "This one night I have to go off. I'll be home. Please trust in me." You know. Now, what's being tested in this whole thing, of course, is Goodman Brown's faith. Okay? So think about the symbolism involved in faith with a capital F and faith with a small f. Okay? And then think about what happens when Goodman Brown and Faith meet at the Witch's Sabbath. Think also about what happens when Goodman Brown is on his journey on the way to this Witch's Sabbath, and he sits down and he's ready not to go on, and then he hears this cackling and a whole bunch of voices overhead, and these pink ribbons come fluttering down. Okay? Early in the story, when we met Faith, it was told to us that she had pink ribbons in her hair. Now these pink ribbons come floating down. Okay? So, that's all stuff that's pretty tough to handle for Goodman Brown, as it would be for any of us. An important factor in all of this, too, is Goodman Brown is dealing here one-on-one with the devil. And we all know that the devil is the greatest master of lies that has ever existed. So think about all of the symbols involved in all of this. And again, I'll explain symbolism in the lesson, but you need to understand what's going on in this story. Then, at the critical moment in the story, Goodman Brown says to Faith, who was there at the Witch's Sabbath with him, and the two of them are to be brought into the covenant of witches, he says, "Faith, Faith, look up to heaven and resist the evil one." Okay? He says that. And think about what happens to Goodman Brown then. Think about how he is as a person. Think about how he treats Faith from there on. And then think about the very end of the story. Hawthorne tells us, or the narrator tells us, because the narrator is the person telling us the story, that often at night Goodman Brown shrank from the bosom of Faith. It's only often, it's not always. Goodman Brown doesn't know if Faith looked up to heaven and resisted the evil one. He doesn't know that, okay? However, think about the fact that Goodman Brown, when he is being buried near the end of the story, there is a whole, funeral procession, and in that procession is Faith and Goodman Brown's children and grandchildren. So if Goodman Brown really felt that Faith accepted evil, and you wonder about it as you go through the story, then why does he have children and grandchildren? Okay? So all of these things are symbols, important symbols. Hawthorne is delving into what the puritanical society is all about. This is a heavy-duty story, really heavy-duty. Hence, we're in front of a fireplace here as we get you to think about the symbolism involved in all of this, the symbol in the fire, the symbol in the Witch's Sabbath, the symbol of why I am here in front of a fireplace for you to gain a little bit of extra information on this story. And then when you get over to the other story, the minister's black veil, okay? The minister is not crazy. Let me state that out. First thing, Parson Hooper is not crazy. Secondly, Parson Hooper did not have an affair with the woman who is dead in the casket, and he shudders when he sees her. People wondered about that. Don't tell me that. If you tell me that, that means you didn't watch this video. Okay? So that'll be very obvious you didn't pay attention to the video if you tell me that he must have had an affair with the woman who had died, and that's why he shuddered. He is going through the same kind of thing that Goodman Brown went through. But Parson Hooper is a minister who is trying to get people to live a good spiritual life. Okay? So think about the symbolism involved in the veil that Parson Hooper puts on his face and wears for the rest of his life when he gives, starting with when he gives a sermon on secret sin. Think about the symbolism in that sermon. Think about the symbolism of the veil. Think about why Parson Hooper won't take that veil off. And think about Parson Hooper's very last words. Okay? Because his very last words are critical to the meaning of the whole story. So read the story carefully and figure out whether or not we really should deem Parson Hooper a monster, as he says. Because he says, when this happens, and when this happens, and when this happens, then deem me a monster. Is Parson Hooper really a monster? Think about the symbolism there. Okay? Questions, you know where to get me. I think these are two of the, most exciting and heavy-duty stories that we talk about all semester. Obviously, I love them. You guys are doing great. You did really well on last week's essay, so I'm looking forward to what you write about this. I really enjoy these two stories, and I'm excited to see your responses. Okay? Have a good week.